Alone in the dark, the ship floated in the endless black of space. Its hull was broken, its lights dim, and only a faint hum of power kept life inside. Inside, a single figure moved slowly. His name was Kale, the last survivor of a proud alien crew. His body felt heavy, his chest weak. The air was thin, and every breath was a struggle. The silence around him was deeper than anything he had ever known. Kale looked at the cracked window of the ship. Beyond it, there was only darkness. Stars glittered far away, cold and uncaring. No one was coming. He knew this. His people had sent out calls for help before their fleet was destroyed. None had answered. Not the so-called allies. Not the great empires. The galaxy had turned away. He whispered to himself, "I am the last." His voice sounded strange in the empty ship. For days or maybe weeks, Kale had lost count. He had drifted here, waiting for death. His water was almost gone. His food had run out. His body ached from hunger. Sometimes he closed his eyes and hoped not to wake again. But each time, the weak hum of the dying ship pulled him back. He thought of his homeworld. Green fields, rivers that shone like silver. His family laughing around the fire, all of it gone, burned by the enemy fleet. Destroyed because his people were weak. Kale pressed a trembling hand against the cold wall. "Why did I survive?" he whispered. "Why me?" His heart hurt not from hunger alone, but from loneliness. The galaxy was vast, yet he had never felt. So small, so forgotten. Even death seemed slow to come, mocking him with silence. Sometimes he thought he heard voices, his captain, his friends, but it was only the echo of his own memories. The silence of space was cruel. It swallowed sound, swallowed hope, and then something changed. At first, he thought it was another trick of his mind. A faint beep echoed from the ship's dead console. He froze. The light on the sensor panel flickered weakly, as if struggling to live. His heart began to pound. "No, it cannot be," Kale whispered. The screen showed a reading, a faint signal. Something massive was moving in the distance. He staggered closer, pressing his face to the dim light. It was no ghost, no dream. Something real was there. A ship, large, powerful, but what kind of ship? Enemy, pirate. His weak body trembled with fear. If it was the same hunters that had destroyed his people, then death had finally come for him. He pressed the scanner controls. The ship's systems were failing, but the signal grew stronger. Whatever it was moving toward him. Kale's throat was dry. He whispered to the darkness, "Please, please don't let it be them." The lights on the console flickered again. He caught a glimpse of strange markings, letters, not of his people. He did not know them, but they were sharp, bold, alive. The ship was not like any he had seen before. The void outside remained dark. He could see nothing yet. Only the beeping of the console told him that something vast was closing the distance. Kale gripped the console with shaking hands. For the first time since the destruction of his world, he felt something he thought was gone forever: hope. But hope was dangerous. Hope could break a heart more than despair. His mind battled itself. It could be salvation, one voice whispered. It could be death, another answered. The silence stretched as the signal grew stronger. The massive shape was coming closer, 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 and then he saw it. Through the cracked glass of the viewport, a shadow moved across the stars, huge, like a mountain gliding through space. Engines glowed faintly in the black, and the shape of a warship appeared. Cale's breath caught in his throat. His heart beat so hard he thought it might stop. He had never seen a ship like this. Its design was strange, harsh, full of angles and scars. It looked alive, like a beast made of steel. He whispered, "Who are you?" The ship drew nearer. Lights along its hull flickered on, cutting through the void. For the first time in endless silence, Cale was not alone. Someone was here, but fear gripped him as well. If this was an enemy warship, his suffering would only end in fire. The console beeped again. A signal flashed across the dying screen. Words he did not understand appeared, symbols of a foreign tongue. And then sound, a voice. It was strange, deep and strong. Not his language, not any language he knew, but there was meaning inside it. The tone carried something he had not felt for so long. It carried strength, it carried life, and it carried a promise. Cale's eyes filled with tears. He pressed his trembling hand to the console as if he could touch the voice itself. Someone had answered the silence. The void was no longer empty, and Cale realized he was not alone anymore. Asterisk, the human warship, the massive shadow, drifted closer through the dark, its engines burning with steady fire. Cale pressed his forehead against the cracked glass, his eyes wide. He had never seen a vessel like this. It was unlike the smooth designs of the great empires. This ship looked raw, alive like a blade forged in battle, carrying scars of countless wars. It was not the cold perfection of machines. It was something else, something dangerous. The sensors crackled again. Cale tried to force the failing screen to focus, but the images blurred. All he could see was size. This ship was larger than anything he had known. It was not drifting helplessly like him. No, it moved with purpose. It hunted through the void like a predator. Fear tightened Cale's chest. His mind spun. Who are they? Why come here? The ship stopped only a short distance from his dying vessel. Its lights glowed brighter, sharp beams cutting across the void. They fell on Cale's ship like a spotlight, exposing it. His heart froze. He was seen. For a long moment, nothing happened. The giant warship hung in space, silent and still, watching him like an eye in the dark. Then the console on Cale's side blinked again. A new message appeared. Strange symbols filled the screen. They were bold, simple, almost carved. Cale did not know them, but he felt power in their shape. The ship was speaking to him. He pressed his weak fingers against the console, trying to reply. No answer came, only silence, and then a sound. The speakers in the broken bridge came alive with a burst of static. Cale jumped, his body trembling. Slowly, through the crackling noise, a voice spoke, deep, calm, firm. It was not his language, yet, strangely, the tone carried meaning. Cale felt the hairs on his skin rise. It was a voice of command, a voice that had seen war but refused to break. It was a voice alive with fire. The warship was human. He had heard whispers of them before, stories told in frightened voices at the edges of space. The Terrans, the exiles, the Deathworlders who survived things that killed others. Many dismissed them as myths, shadows that haunted old wars. But now Cale was staring at proof. They were real. They were here. The warship moved closer. Its hull filled his entire viewport now. He saw scars, giant black burns where weapons had struck. Dents, where enemy fire had tried and failed to pierce it. Each scar was a story of survival. The human ship released a small craft, Kale's heart raced. It was heading straight toward his broken vessel. He staggered back from the glass. No. What do they want with me? The craft connected with the airlock of his dying ship. The metal groaned as the doors fought to open. Kale's breath grew shallow. He had no strength to fight. He could not even stand without shaking. If these humans meant to kill him, he would not stop them, the door hissed. Inside, figures in dark armor, tall and strong, their faces hidden behind glass helmets, their movements sharp, precise, as if every step carried training and purpose. Kale stumbled back, weak. His voice broke. Please, mercy. One of the armored humans raised a hand, not a weapon, but a signal. The figure stepped closer, moving with calm control. The helmet turned, and Kale saw a glimpse of eyes through the glass. Human eyes. Fierce, alive, but not cruel. A device clicked, and suddenly a translator voice filled the room. Harsh, broken, but clear enough. You are not alone. Kale's knees buckled. The words cut into him like fire. Not alone. How long had he waited, drifting in silence, believing the galaxy had abandoned him? And now, these humans said otherwise. The human reached out a hand, armored and steady. Kale stared at it, his heart racing. Was it a trick, a trap, or was this real? Slowly, with trembling fingers, he reached out. Their hands touched Telian skin against human armor. The human's voice came again. Harder, stronger. Come, you will live. Kale's eyes filled with tears. For the first time since the fall of his people, he felt something stir inside him. Hope. The humans lifted him gently, supporting his broken body. Their strength was terrifying, yet careful. They carried him out of the wreck, through the airlock, and into the waiting craft. As the doors closed, Kale looked back one last time at the broken husk of his ship, the silent tomb where he had waited for death. Now he was leaving it behind. The craft carried him toward the massive warship. Its size was overwhelming, its power undeniable. As he drew closer, he read strange markings burned into its side symbols of its name. The translator cracked once more, whispering the meaning into his ears. Defiance. Kale shivered. This was no ordinary ship. This was a beast forged for war, a promise of vengeance, and it had come for him. The silence of the void was broken. Humanity had arrived. Stories shared in the void. Kale woke slowly. For the first time in many cycles, he felt warmth around him. The air was rich, full, easy to breathe. Lights glowed above, clean and steady, not the flicker of dying systems. He lay on a bed soft, strong, unlike the cold floor of his wreck. He turned his head and froze. Humans, 2 of them, stood at the side of his bed. They wore no helmets now. Their faces were pale compared to his people, but alive, sharp. Their eyes burned with something he could not name. One was tall, broad-shouldered, with scars across his cheek. The other was smaller, with softer features, but the same intense eyes. Kale tried to rise, but his body was weak. The tall human raised a hand, speaking through a device that translated with broken rhythm. Rest. You are safe. Kale's throat was dry. He forced out words. Why? Why help me? The galaxy does not save the lost. The smaller human stepped closer, placing a strange, clear container beside him. Water, cool, pure, pure. Kale grabbed it with trembling hands and drank deeply. The taste burned down his throat, but it was life. The human waited until he finished, then spoke. We are not the galaxy. Kale stared. The words were simple, but heavy. He gathered strength, his voice weak. You do not know, my people. They are gone, burned. I drifted alone. All others turned away. No empire answered, not one. Silence filled the room. The two humans glanced at each other. Then the scarred one leaned forward, his eyes fierce. We know, we understand. Kale frowned. How you are different. You are human. What do you know of loss? The scarred man's jaw tightened. He touched the table, as if pressing down old pain. We lost Earth once. Burned cities. Broken skies. Billions dead. The galaxy left us to die. Kale's breath caught. The humans had known silence too. The smaller human added softly, but we did not stay broken. We rose. We fight. Always. Kale looked between them, his chest heavy, for so long he had thought only his people had been abandoned, only he had drifted in the dark. But these humans, they carried scars deeper than flesh. He whispered, "Why save me then? I am no one. My people are ash." The scarred man's eyes hardened, but his voice was steady. "Because you called, and no one should die unheard." The words struck Kale like fire. No one else in the galaxy had spoken them. No empire, no alliance. Only these humans, these strangers, carried such a vow, for the first time in endless silence. Kale felt his chest tremble with something he had almost forgotten: trust. Hours passed. The humans gave him food, strange, thick bars of protein, bitter but strong. His body regained strength. He watched them work around him. Soldiers, engineers, medics. They moved with discipline, but also with life. Laughter echoing down the halls. It was not the cold, mechanical silence of other fleets. It was fire. One night cycle, Kale sat in the human mess hall. The translator device rested near him, humming. A group of humans sat at the table, sharing food. They spoke in their own language, rough and fast, but the device caught pieces. Family, never surrender, for each other. Kale listened. These humans fought not for empires, not for cold thrones, but for one another. For bonds, for life, for something he could not explain. A young human noticed Kale watching. She smiled faintly and pushed a tray of food toward him. Her voice, rough through the translator, said, "Eat, strength returns." Kale touched the food with shaking fingers. Simple kindness, no bargain, no demand. His heart ached. He remembered his own family, the firelight, the laughter, all gone. Yet here, among strangers, he felt a spark of it again. Later, the scarred human Captain Morrison, Kale had learned, came to him. They stood at the viewing deck together, looking out into the black void. The stars stretched like endless fires. Voice was steady. "You saw who destroyed your people." Kale's chest tightened. He nodded slowly. "Yes, they are hunters. They give no mercy. They come in silence, and when they leave, nothing remains." The captain's jaw tightened. "They will come again." Kale turned, fear in his voice. "Then you must run. Hide. Even your warship cannot fight them. No one can." Morrison's eyes narrowed. His hands clenched behind his back, and when he spoke, his words carried the fire of Earth itself. "We don't run." Kale froze. The captain looked at him with steel in his gaze. "You drifted alone in darkness, waiting for death. But remember this: humanity does not abandon. Humanity does not forget. If they come, we fight. Cale's heart pounded. The words were madness. No one defied the hunters. Yet looking at Morrison, Cale saw no madness, only certainty, only defiance. For the first time since his people burned, Cale felt not just hope, but something stronger. He felt belief, and in the silence of the void, he whispered to himself, "Perhaps I am not alone anymore." Fire against the darkness. The alarms woke Cale before his dreams could settle. The soft hum of the warship had turned violent, sharp tones echoing through the corridors. Red lights flashed above. Humans ran past his cabin, their boots pounding like thunder. Cale staggered to the doorway. His heart froze when he saw the viewing screen at the end of the hall. They had come. Dark shapes slid out of the void ships, dozens of them, moving like predators. Their hulls were black, jagged, drinking in the starlight. They did not shine, they consumed. Cale's chest locked. His voice broke in fear. The hunters, the nightmare of his people, the ones who left his world in ashes. The defiance trembled as its systems came alive. Turrets unfolded from hidden compartments, their barrels glowing. Shields flared, a thin layer of blue light shimmering across the hull. Engines roared. A voice thundered through the ship's intercom. All stations battle. Alert. Enemy fleet inbound. Cale's hands shook. He had seen this before. Once, long ago, when his people still lived. He remembered the hunters striking without mercy. He remembered cities burned, screams lost in the void. And now it was happening again. But the humans did not scream. Captain Morrison stood on the command deck, eyes sharp, shoulders steady. Around him, his crew moved with precision, no panic in their movements. They had faced death before. Cale stumbled inside the deck, fear breaking through his voice. "You must flee. You cannot fight them." "My people tried." Morrison cut him off with a single look, cold steel in his eyes. "We are not your people. We are human." The hunters spread out, their black ships circling like wolves. Energy pulses charged on their weapons, glowing red against the dark. Cale felt his knees weaken. He whispered, "This is the end." But Morrison's voice rang out, hard as iron. "Target locks, full batteries, fire on my command." Cale's eyes widened. "You cannot fight them." Morrison turned to him, his voice low but fierce. "Then watch us." The first hunter ship fired. A spear of red light cut across the void. Shields screamed as they absorbed the strike. The Defiant shook, but did not break. "Return fire," Morrison roared. The void exploded with light. Terran cannons unleashed streams of blue and white fire, weapons older than empires, but burning with raw power. The first hunter ship twisted. In the blast, its hull cracking, then bursting into fire. Cale's jaw fell open. The hunters did not fall so easily. No one destroyed them in a single strike. No one except these humans. The crew shouted as more enemy ships closed in. Torpedoes roared from the Defiance, streaking across the black and slamming into the Predators. Explosions bloomed like new stars, but the hunters were endless. More ships poured in, their red beams tearing across shields. The Defiance shook under. The assault. Sparks rained down on the deck. A console burst into flames before being smothered. Cale clung to the railing, terror shaking through him. "You cannot hold them." Morrison barked orders, his voice never breaking. Evasive pattern delta. Redirect power to forward shields. Prepare the broadside. The Defiance rolled like a beast awakening, its cannons glowing brighter. Then with a single command. It unleashed its full fury. The broadside tore through the void, dozens of cannons, firing at once, a storm of fire and light. Entire hunter ships ripped apart under the barrage, their twisted hulls burning before vanishing into silence. Cale's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen such violence, such strength, but the hunters kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared from the dark. Their red beams hammered the shields, each strike heavier than the last. The smaller human officer shouted over the noise. Shields at 40%, hull damage on decks 3 and 5. Morrison's face was hard stone. He did not flinch. Cale's fear broke into anger. He stumbled forward, voice desperate. Why fight? Why not run? You cannot win. The captain finally turned to him. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the chaos. Because running means the galaxy keeps burning. Because if we run today, someone else dies tomorrow. We don't run, Cale. We fight, always. The words cut through Cale's heart. Madness, he thought. Madness, and yet truth. The Defiance roared again. Torpedoes streaked out, tearing through another line of hunter ships. The void burned with wreckage. For the first time, Cale saw the predators hesitate. They were not used to prey that fought back. The humans pressed the advantage. Cannons thundered. Beams tore through black holes. Where the hunters spread fear, the Defiance spread fire. Cale gripped the railing, his chest heaving. For the first time since his people fell, he felt the impossible. The hunters were not untouchable, and humanity, these strange, scarred warriors, were proving it. The deck shook again as another enemy beam slammed into the shields. Lights flickered. The ship groaned under the pressure. But still it fought. Still it burned. Captain Morrison stood tall at the center of the storm, eyes blazing, voice unshaken. Defiance. Holds, he roared, and the ship answered him with fire. Asterisk not alone anymore. The battle did not end quickly. The hunters pressed again and again, waves of black ships tearing across the void. Each strike shook the Defiance, shields flickering, hull groaning. Fires burst along the corridors. Medics rushed between decks, pulling wounded soldiers to safety, but the humans never broke. Captain Morrison stood at the center of the storm, his eyes locked on the tactical display. Sweat ran down his face, but his voice stayed steady. Every order was sharp, every move precise. Rotate batteries, push them back, show them what humanity is. The Defiance answered with fire. Cale clung to the railing, his body trembling with both fear and awe. Never had he seen a crew fight like this. Other species fought for empires, for thrones, for power. These humans fought for each other, for survival, for something deeper, something the hunters could never understand. The predators circled again, trying to close the trap. Cale's stomach twisted as 3 hunter ships moved in on their flank. They're surrounding you, he cried. But the humans were already moving. The Defiance rolled hard, turrets swiveling. Torpedoes streaked out like falling stars, slamming into the predators before they could strike. The black ships shattered, burning wreckage scattering across the void. The crew cheered, voices raw with fire. Cale's heart thudded painfully in his chest. Against the impossible, the Defiance held. Yet the hunters did not retreat. More poured from the darkness, as if the void itself gave birth to them. Cale's hope faltered. There are too many, he whispered. Morrison's voice was iron. There are never too many. The deck shook again. A red beam tore across the ship, blasting through the shields. A console exploded. A soldier fell, unmoving. The crew pressed on, their voices unbroken. Cale staggered forward. His fear boiled into something else, fury. He thought of his people, his family, his burned world. The hunters had taken everything from him. But here, beside these humans, he felt a fire he had never known before. He turned to Morrison, his voice shaking. "Tell me what to do." The captain's eyes met his. For a moment, silence filled the deck. Then Morrison nodded once. "You know their tactics. You've seen them before. Show us their weakness." Cale's chest tightened. No one had ever asked him to fight. No one had ever trusted him with more than survival. But the humans, they gave him that choice. He leaned over the display, pointing to the hunter formations. Here, their ships group tight when they prepare a heavy strike. If you hit the lead vessel, the rest lose rhythm. Morrison's mouth curved in a sharp grin. Then we break the lead. Orders flew. The Defiance shifted, engines screaming. Cannons focused on a single black predator at the center of the formation. A storm of fire roared out, torpedoes, beams, everything the ship could unleash. The lead predator cracked. Its core flared, then exploded. The shockwave tore through. The rest, scattering them in chaos. The humans cheered, the sound raw and alive. Cale's chest surged with something he had not felt in years. Victory. The hunters reeled. Their fleet broke into fragments. Some fled into the void. Others burned in silence. For the first time, the predators had been forced to retreat. The Defiance drifted in the aftermath, its hull scorched, its decks scarred. But it lived, and so did its crew. Cale stood at the viewing deck, staring into the wreckage. His hands shook, not from fear, but from release. He whispered to himself, "It is possible. They can be beaten." Morrison joined him, his face tired, but steady. "Now you understand." Cale turned to him, his throat tight. "You do not run. Even when all logic says to flee, you stand." "Why?" The captain's eyes burned with fire. "Because someone has to. Because the void is full of silence, and if we don't fight, no one will. Humanity remembers. Humanity answers." Cale's chest ached. For so long, he had drifted alone, certain the galaxy was empty of hope. But these humans, they were different. They were fire against the dark. He looked back at the void, where wreckage floated like broken shadows. His voice was soft, but filled with something new. "I thought I was the last of my people, alone forever. But now," he swallowed hard, "now I know I am not alone anymore." Morrison's hand rested on his shoulder, heavy and steady. "Not as long as humanity breathes." The stars stretched endless before them. Once they had been Cale's prison, an ocean of silence. Now, standing beside the Defiance and its crew, they were something else. They were a promise.